Welcome back. It is week 3, class 4, and I imagine you can guess what our class is about. We've been building up to it gradually, sweetly, and slowly about how to hear please when it's applied to you. So your slogan for today is going to be, so we learned people are always just saying please and thank you. So we learned to say thank you with a little protocol just to train some skills, the skills of I statements or the skills of sharing from the heart, the specifics of connected, compassionate orientation. Then we learned to start to listen for thank yous in the world. We started to dip our toes into listening for please in the world. And now we're going to listen for those please when applied to you. But we're also going to do a little trick with it, which is we're not going to do something currently. We're not going to ask your empathy buddy, hey, will you insult me? I want to try this nonviolent communication thing I learned. Don't do that. We are going to work with something from the past. We're going to work with something from the past. And so this will be a journal exercise for you. And I would like to encourage you to pick something that still bugs you a little bit, but doesn't trigger you too much. And this is the trick that we're going to learn as we go through here of finding the sweet spot between being stimulated but not flooded, stimulated but not flooded. So when you're stimulated, you can use these little tricks in your brain of like, oh, this is a stress that's going to enhance me, right? That's a mantra that I actually really like, taught about in a previous workshop. We'll probably do it soon. This is a stress that could enhance me. Oh, I'm stimulated. There's something for me to learn here. There's energy. There's life force here. Got it. But we don't want to be so flooded that our brain state changes into the fight or flight mode. And when that happens, we'll get into this next month. When that happens, the blood flow shifts from our complex prefrontal neocortex down into the survival circuitry, and there actually isn't enough blood to go around. It shifts, and so your empathy, your abstract thinking, your learning capacities go offline when you are under stress. Do that long enough, it actually shrinks your brain. It shrinks that neocortex part, and it builds your amygdala so that you're more likely to be stressed out in the future. Yikes. Okay, hopefully that didn't stress you out, but it's just to say, I want you for your exercise now to pick something from your maybe recent past, maybe a long time ago, still sticks with you, but it's not going to crush you to work with it, but there's something to work with. I hope that makes sense. And this is a communication when someone gave you negative feedback. Someone gave you negative feedback, and they did it in the classic standard style, right? They made a you statement. So they might have done some of the classics like you always or you never, or they might have name called, they might have diagnosed you, right? You're such a narcissist. Today on my social media, the one I failed at, I'm recording these on the same day. So I told you a couple of days ago, I failed at my Giraffe Ears. Somebody gave me a big rant and I was like, back off, Jack. And then they said, oh, I guess you're thin skinned today. And then I said, hey, back off with the diagnoses too. I really did not have a lot of giraffe ears in me today, but I think it was a healthy conversation anyway. Where was I going? Oh, somebody might have diagnosed you. You're a narcissist. You're thin skinned. You're whatever. They gave you their projection, or they gave you a complaint. God, it stinks in this house. You never clean that. You never take out the garbage. Oh, okay. Whatever it is. Don't get me too riled up. I now have a lot of energy rushing through my system. This is a stress that is enhancing me. I use my mantra. Okay, so you're going to take that, you're going to remember it. And if you can, in your journal, write down what happened. What did they say as best you can remember it? And one of the things with writing it down, it's a little different than just doing a thought experiment. We did a lot of those in the last couple of weeks. Writing things down actually objectifies it, so that rather than the feelings, all the memories and the feelings feeling like they're in here, when you write it down, the mind goes to a degree, it's like, oh, that's out there. It's an interesting trick. So journaling may be one of the healing effects. Journaling has these proven kind of really beneficial effects on your mind. One of those might be that you are kind of objectifying it rather than, oh, they said this and I feel this. Well, how did it happen? Oh, well, they came home, they said blah, 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 and just see if you can remember how they shared that feedback with you. then just like before, we are going to, and this is why we don't want one that's too triggering, because we may not want to generate, it may not be healthy for us to generate empathy for some of our past experiences that we still hold. We may be holding that big charge because we still need the boundary or something like that. So don't worry about that. We're doing a whole boundaries module next month. Maybe that'll be the time for that. For now, something that's like, oh, I didn't quite like the way that landed when mom said this, or when my 3 bosses ago said this. It just left a bad taste in my mouth and I can still remember it. Okay, so I'll use mine. The guy said, wow, someone must have a real thin skin if I was just doing this and you responded like this. Okay, thank you for your diagnosis. So I would write that down in my journal, what I remember they said. And then I would try my best to hear it with giraffe ears. So, okay, what are they pointing to? They said, okay, I just shared this. And then, basically they were doing that one tactic where they're like, you got triggered. Haha, don't do that. Or that mean, doing the whole emotion shaming. We already been through that in this week. But okay, what are they observing? Right. And my voice slows down because you really have to slow down the mind with these sometimes. It's great training. What are they observing? Okay, when they shared, I immediately made a boundary. I did not listen deeper. I did not inquire. I said, stop it. Right. Okay. So that's what they're observing by their projection, by their insult, by their emotion shaming, by their tone policing. Maybe, I don't know if I'm using that word right there. Okay. So they're sharing. I immediately clapped back and made a boundary instead of listening more deeply. Okay. What might have they been feeling? Oh, well, I imagine if someone did that to me, and there's a little magic phrase, if someone did that to me, even if that's just their interpretation, right? But if I thought someone was doing that to me, I might feel, how do I think they felt? Probably frustrated. I was intentionally trying to frustrate, the old use of that word, frustrate their game, their communication game that they were playing. Okay. So they might feel frustrated. Well, what do I think they were needing? Oh shoot, now I'm doing this live. My empathy circuits come on when I think, what might have they been needing? Right. So they were probably needing communion, like they wanted to be able to riff out these ideas and then have someone receive them and probably like play the game and riff back. But I said, no, I'm not receiving that, because the style was just unacceptable. It was not acceptable to me, and I'm learning to make a boundary for that. But I bet why those feelings were up for them that caused them to have to clap back and try to insult me were because they were putting out their bid for connection, and then all they got back from me was my wall. Oh. And then did I already say it in this lesson? I'm not sure, but the slogan is going to be, because I've been through a lot of emotional processing since the beginning of this lesson. Give me a break here. It's only been 7 minutes. The slogan you can use is to learn to hear complaints as requests, translating complaints to requests. So they were complaining like, oh man, you can't hear that. I was just doing this. You're like this. That's a complaint. But what I have now learned through this introspective process is probably if they would have said, oh man, I wish you would have just connected with me instead of putting up a barrier, I might have immediately been able to say, oh, all right, thanks for telling me for what you needed. I got a little triggered when you said, I might have just self-identified as triggered. I was triggered, but I don't think my response was disproportionate, but I was stimulated. So we're going to listen in. You're going to write down in your journal, oh, what was it? Oh, they said this. Okay. So what were they observing through that projection, prediction, generalization, insult, whatever they said? What were they observing there? And from there, okay, when they observed that, how do I think they felt? What feelings might they be expressing here? Okay. What were they needing? And we're just working on translating if they could have said what they were trying to, but with a perfect I statement. Like, I dream of a world where people start to make I statements and just like, and then I can hear them like, oh, you want that? I love participating in people's values personally, but we rarely ask for that. We rarely ask for others to participate in, and it's just a lack of training. So we're going to learn to listen as if, if they could have said that in the best I statement, my favorite I statement to hear, what might they have said? We're not doing this like they would know how to do that, right? You're not trying to project that like, oh yeah, if no, you're translating it. The wise friend, is going to step in between you and this person and be like, okay, let me tell you what they actually mean. They're actually hurting in this way. And nobody ever trained them to talk, right? So this is what they were trying to say. And we're going to translate that into the language of please, hearing complaints as a request, hearing insults as a request. Okay, so please do hold back on from doing this on anything that is triggering, flooding, overstimulating. We don't want that because that's not always healthy, right? We're not. Eventually, we do learn to have compassion and empathy toward beings that it's really hard to have that for, but we don't want to jump straight there. There's a healthy part in just holding those boundaries. But there's also probably some stuff that, Uncle Fred once said, and he said it in an unsensitive, kind of just doltish way. And we are going to learn to translate that and just get a little warmth in our heart for poor old Uncle Fred, and also probably some understanding. At the very least, you've used a game to train ourselves the skills of empathy for when it really matters, for when your partner is triggered, for when your child is triggered, and your kid just, they can't do anything but scream and shout, and you can learn to listen to the needs that they're expressing and realize that they're a child, they're overstimulated, they can't express themselves well, and so you can learn to listen well. Having those tools online, man, it can be a lifesaver for relationships. So I hope you give this a try. Enjoy that. Don't limit yourself to just one, but start with one today at some point. And we'll see you next time for our next lesson.